Clifton is here today to share with us his wisdom and skills for the Hill. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Stewart Clifton.
Thank you. It's good to be here. It's good to talk with some of you that I've met many times before, and some of you I've met this year going around to various campuses. I'm happy to do that, by the way, during the fall. Not so much during the legislative session. It's not quite as easy, but I'd love to come visit with you if you have time to have me in the next couple of years. Let me see if I can get this straight about your core values. What were those again? What were they? Service. Social justice. Dignity and worth of... Okay, well, my work here is done. Well, I thought those were the core values, and I guess I wanted to start by saying your core values are not the core values of the Tennessee General Assembly. Yet. And they never will be unless we keep working at it. They're not the core values of the country necessarily, particularly right now. We're at a time in our country and a time in our state where the emphasis is more than in my lifetime on I and not we, on personal success as opposed to social success and social justice. So that's the first thing I want you to know. It's probably a big shock to you, and I don't say it in any sort of elitist way. The people who were elected to represent you and other citizens of this state are due respect for the office they hold, for the trust people have put in them, and they deserve to be treated with respect, whether we agree with them on every issue or not. But frankly, those core values you just reminded us of are not how they got elected. And there is a spirit abroad in the country which is really, I guess one word for it is selfishness. Another word is just total lack of awareness of how some people have to live. So we've known this as a profession, you've known this as a profession from the beginning. The professionals, the students, all of you know this, and you're here to make a difference with people who aren't necessarily opposed to those values. They just don't necessarily come to Nashville with that being foremost in their minds. So we're here to make that difference. I want to start, I want to do two things this morning, and one is to tell you to take out this sheet that is right on top of your desk. It's not in your folder. It's a sheet that at the top says, "We thank you as our senators and representatives." Does everyone have that? The idea is that you will be able to visit your senators and representatives, those who you have appointments with, who you see in the hallways, who you're lucky enough to meet in some way, and leave this with them. Because it will reiterate some of your conversation with them. As you will see, we're talking about very specific things this year. And you may be talking about other things, but these 3 bullet points under "We ask your help" are things that you will want to leave behind with them. For those of you lucky enough to be meeting with more than one senator or representative, there are extra copies of this at the table down in Legislative Plaza. I guess some extra copies back in the foyer here. So if you need more than one copy, take more than one copy. But that's something we're going to go over in just a few minutes. But this, if you've been looking in your folder for what our talking points are or what the leave behind is for the legislators, this is it. It's not in the folder. It's right on top of your desk. I have talked with a few groups before about what does it take to actually have an impact on the legislature. There's all sorts of cynical answers to that, which I'm not going to go into. But I will talk a little bit about some of the points that are on page 8 of your booklet, if you'd like to follow along. If you're part of a few programs here. You've heard me talk about these this year. But I'm just going to hit the high points because the main point isn't to listen to me today. It's to get out and experience the legislature, talk with your legislators, perhaps take in a meeting or two, and go back with some knowledge and having had some impact. But I think it's important before we go over the specific issues to remind you of why we're here. And it's basically to become effective advocates both today and in the future, to learn a little bit of skills about it, to learn what works and what doesn't. So the first thing I want you to know is, and this will be a great shock to you, legislative advocacy is not about facts necessarily. It's not about ideology. It's not about how much you know and can impart. It's about relationships. This will be stunning to you, I know, but the people who were elected in Tennessee are folks who are much more interested in relationships than they are in all those other things. They are much like human beings in that regard, because we all are much more interested in relationships and who's asking us to do something. What do we think about them? How do we feel about what they're saying based on who they are and our relationship with them? That's who they are. That's how they got elected. They're not the smartest people in their districts. They're not the most educated necessarily. They're not the richest. They are people who can get along with folks, who can listen well, and who can reflect back what people they respect and like tell them to do. That's what it is. And with 132 legislators, you can find some real interesting examples of unusual behavior and unusual positions. But at root, overall, that's who they are. They're people who came here because they felt like maybe they were being led to come here. Maybe they came here because it's a step toward their own fulfillment, their own self-actualization. Or maybe they just had some power needs, I don't know. But they're here and they pay attention to people with whom they have a relationship. You are here to create that relationship, not just for you as a person, but for NASW, for your campus, for your future occupation, for your community. So you are here to build a relationship, to take it to the next level, if you already have one, and get something done from people who value very much trying to do what people they respect want them to do. I hope that makes sense, because it's possibly the most important thing I can say. I don't mean to minimize facts. I don't mean to minimize the research you put in on your projects. I don't mean to minimize our key issues that NASW is asking for specific help on with legislators, but basically it's relationships. It's a step toward your personal and group relationships with your public policy officials for the future. There are many ways to have a relationship. By being here at what is the largest Day on the Hill this year, that's what we're here at. This is the largest Day on the Hill that any group has put together. And luckily it's not hard to do. You know, Melissa and Karen and everyone just did it in their spare time. Now, the reason that NASW does this year after year is because there is some strength in numbers, because students in this profession want to develop skills. But I tell you, it makes a difference in legislators' attitudes to know that every single year NASW's Day on the Hill is coming to see them, and that they're going to have more people than any other group. Maybe it's a coincidence that in the 10 years I've worked with NASW, we have had a number of professional issues. We've had a lot of social issues we've worked on, but some that deal specifically with the profession. Quite a few of them. We have 100% passage rate. We have passed every such bill we filed. And I don't think it is really a coincidence that we have this Day on the Hill. It's just kind of easier to say yes when you know you're going to be facing this group year after year. So why not just say yes now? So we have a good track record. So the first thing is, by being here, by taking the time to be here, you are establishing and building a relationship by meeting with your legislator, by leaving information behind. But there are any number of creative ways that you back home can build that relationship as well. I don't have time this morning to go through all of those, but just a very few hints are listed on this page 8 so that you can read later on. It's only limited by your creativity. any social work class that possibly should arrange for their own legislator to speak to that class at some time during the year. And I know basically it may be hard to do because of their schedules and yours, but they want to have opportunities like that. They want to be heard. And they'd much rather spend time with people from their part of the state than with a bunch of paid lobbyists. I mean, that's just the way it is. So if you have an opportunity, I noticed Speaker Harwell was here, the first woman Speaker of the House in the history of Tennessee, a woman who's, I've used this line already today, but you can tell that she's a great politician because she came to Nashville and went to Lipscomb, taught at Belmont, got her PhD at Vanderbilt. I mean, nobody comes close in the elections to Beth Harwell. She just gets every vote there is. But she would love to come to Belmont or Lipscomb and talk to social work classes. Don't tell me if you've asked her if she had to come, because I don't want to hear that. But the same is true for many, many people who you elected. Ask them to come ask them in the fall to come talk about what happened last year, what they're looking for. It doesn't even have to be about your issues, just build that relationship. So I'll get off the idea of relationships, but just think about that when you get back home. The second thing is to do your homework on the legislator as well as your issue, as well as the legislation. You need to know who you're talking with. That's not easy to do when you've got everything else you're doing, but as a professional, as a future social worker, you will have time to do that. You will have time to figure out who is this person that I've asked to spend some time with me about an issue. Who is this person we just invited to class to come speak? Find out who they are. It's easy enough with web-based research. It's easy enough in terms of talking to people who know. And also know what you're talking about specifically when you talk about any piece of legislation. Don't make things up. Understand what you're doing and why you're there. It's a little late for that now today, in a way, because homework is best done before the test and stuff like that. But you get the idea. For the future, be prepared on who you're talking to and what you're talking about. Number 3 is a hard one for people to hear these days. The third tip I have for how you should approach this is to respect your local state elected official, any elected official. That's the verb I chose very specifically. I did not say like the elected official. I did not say agree with on every issue. The verb is respect, and they can certainly tell when you've got it or when you don't. They can tell that. It doesn't have to be something that means you love who they are and how they voted. But for the sake of this process and the fact that they have something you don't have, somebody elected them, nobody elected us. They deserve respect. They deserve respect because they're part of democracy. And if you don't like them, change them. But respect them while they're there and make sure that comes through as you talk with them. Number 4 is provide short, clear information. I'm a lawyer. We don't have any complicated information, and we have no jargon at all. But social workers do, I know. Every profession has their own set of vocabulary and their own jargon. Legislators don't want to hear that. They want to hear words they know. So make sure that your information is understandable. You're not writing a thesis. You're providing oral and written material that they can understand and grab hold of. It has to be short, it has to be clear, it has to be in common sense words. Short sort of means one sentence. I'm sorry, one page. You don't want to give somebody a social work journal review. They're going to take that and they're going to read it, right before they vote, and then they're going to vote just how that journal article said. No, it's not that way down here. This year they had 1,800 bills filed. It was the smallest number in 10 years. 1,800 bills they were supposed to be familiar with. So no, they're not going to read your medical journal article, your law review article, your social work journal article. They're going to read bullet points that don't go on for more than one page. So that's a very important tool, a very important thing to know. Number 5 is be honest. That sounds kind of Mickey Mouse, but you'd be surprised at how many people think that number 5 should be clever and cute. No. You have to be totally honest with someone. If they ask you a question you don't know the answer to, you don't make it up. You say, I'll get you the answer. I don't really know. Honesty means you don't overclaim for your position. You don't exaggerate. You're just honest. Here's what we think. Here's why we think it. Hope you'll do what we suggest. There are lobbyists who have not always been honest with the facts. They are former lobbyists. I mean, a lobbyist, whether paid or a citizen with a view, is only important if their information is reliable. And so lobbyists generally are very trustworthy because they know that. They know they'll be out of a job if any legislator ever catches them in something that's untrue or exaggerated. And we need to think about that as citizen activists, citizen lobbyists as well. Number 6, check your ego at the door. It's a trite thing to say that you can do anything if it doesn't matter who has the credit, but it's true. Legislators don't always get that. They don't always act as if they get that, but you know this is true. If it's about you, you've lost. If it's about your organization, your value, your issue, your bill, you're not losing, you're winning. But if it has to be about you and you're not working with others and being willing to give others credit, then you're going to lose. So that's an important thing for everyone to remember when it comes to this process. Number 7 is a tough one because we want to win and we want to show people who disagree with us that they were wrong and we're going to fix them. But number 7 is don't ever burn your bridges. Don't ever make threats. I don't think you would do that today, even if someone says something outrageous. We have a legislator yesterday who, in passing a bill in committee to mandate drug testing without suspicion for anyone on public welfare, proceeded to say, yes, the Attorney General said this was unconstitutional, but it wasn't a good, I didn't like the analysis. She just dismissed it. The tendency for some of us would be to call her out on that, to say, well, let's see this. This is the Attorney General of the state, and your background is as a person who carved up their desk in the General Assembly. But I'm not going to say that because you don't want to burn any bridges with anyone. There's always a new thing you're going to be needing from them, a new cause, and the person, number 8, is very similar to number 7. Know that there are no permanent friends and no permanent enemies. That may not be true in your life, but it's certainly true in public policy advocacy. You do not want to cut off your future with anyone just because you could not get them to be on your side on an important issue today. Number 9 is to set priorities and be focused. NASW is the best in the world at this and trying to come up through their board action and legislative committee action with very specific priorities that we try to stick to and try to inform our members about. So you don't want to just come down here and have, well, I've got these 17 things I want to talk to you about. It needs to be something that has been identified as an important enough issue for your time and something that you're going to focus on. And number 10 is to know all the rules. Nobody knows all the rules, but there are rules to know. Some of them are very formal rules, like it doesn't matter if you've got the votes of everyone on the House floor if your committee is against you, because the House will never see the bill if it doesn't pass committee. That's kind of an important rule to know. But there's a lot of informal rules as well, and those you pick up as you go. Some of those rules are in your packet. I have a little piece called How to Act Like You Were Raised Right when you're at the legislature. Informal rules that I'm sure you all know without thinking about them, but take a look at them before you go see legislature. So you need to basically always be learning what the rules are, what the formal and informal rules are. If you do those 10 things, even if you're not the world's expert on the issue you're talking about, and even if you're not the greatest donor to somebody's campaign, then you are going to be effective as a social work lobbyist, a social work educator, a social work advocate, just as a citizen advocate. So I hope those will be helpful to you. Before I turn to what we're asking legislators help on this year, I will mention that, that we're not talking about Congress. We're not talking about writing your congressperson or the president. And that's good, because I'm not sure if everything I just said applies to Congress. Congressional folks have, I don't know, 10 to 20 staffers. They have one for every committee. They have one that reads their mail, that calls it out. At the state, and they get lots of calls and letters. At the state level, they don't. That's the unknown thing about state legislative work, and I suspect local advocacy with council members and mayors and school boards. They don't hear from us. They don't hear from their public. They don't hear from the people who can vote for them. They just don't. Legislators from both parties have repeatedly told me that if we get 5 communications from our area about a specific bill, we think it's a landslide of public opinion. The only thing people call us about is taxes and abortion. Anything else, we just don't hear from anyone. And if we hear five letters or phone calls, we're going to vote that way. And that's stunning, but it's important to realize it. So the idea is that you will make those calls in person or by phone or by letter or email. Do not think that your point of view is not important, and do not think it has to be perfect before it's worth communicating. If we could turn then to this